Hello there, viewing audience. Mickey P here, and this is King's Quest V, Absence Makes the Heart Go Yonder. So this is, as you can probably guess, the fifth game in the King's Quest series, and it was significant in that it was the first one to feature 256 color VGA graphics. Previous games in the series had used 16 color EGA or even CGA in some versions. So this was a major technological milestone of the time. I never actually owned this originally in 1990 when it came out. What I had later on was a budget release of the CD-ROM version that added voice acting and stuff. But what we've got here is the original on floppy disks. And before we open it up, I'd just like you to have a good look at the cover. One thing I'd like to draw to your attention is the creepy ass faces on this. This cover's just like, I don't know what they were thinking, having King Graham lead all the awkward smiling children off into a world of adventure. It's just so tacky and 90s American. Look at his face. Look at that face. No human has that face. Oh god, and they're bringing the puppy along too. If you're familiar with this game, that owl there will now be giving you nightmares. I guess they were going for some sort of family fun, wholesome American apple pie thing. Hence an experience the whole family will enjoy tagline. Another thing on this is the system requirements, which is interesting because it's actually printed on the box rather than a sticker that most Sierra games were using at this time. And it looks, I don't know, weirdly bland and corporate compared to the rest of the incredibly cheesy, colourful box. Look around the side. The only interesting thing here is the little a 3D animated adventure game thing. Because for some reason at the time that was what Sierra called their point-and-click games. They were 3D animated adventure games, even though they weren't really 3D at all. I guess their logic was it's 3D because you can walk forwards and backs as well as left and right. And apparently they even had a trademark on it. It's just such a weird sort of like historical, strange terminology. And if we have a look at the back, there's a lot of writing and more really awkward artwork, or that at least doesn't have creepy children. And I guess what strikes me about this as different from the King's Quest 6 and 7 boxes I've looked at is we don't have the designer's face on here. Of course we still have her name. The name's even on the front, but I guess that was maybe something that they did later. Another spine much the same. So we'll open this up in a bit, but before we do that I'd like to point out just the cover art in general. This isn't the most common version of the cover art that was around. There was I think it was a later re-release that was also used for the CD-ROM version and stuff that had a much less cheesy and more traditional sort of cover that better matched the kind of box for King's Quest 6 and the King's Quest 1 remake. But when I was tracking this down, I felt I had to get the original one because it's the original, two because it is so hilarious. Like, what were they thinking? Were they just drinking their suburban American Kool-Aid so much that they forgot how the world actually is? Look at all those creepy children. What the hell? Anyway, let's have a look at inside the box. And we'll get this out of the way so it doesn't give anyone nightmares. Yeah, standard sort of plain box inside because, yeah, I've talked about this, budget reasons. Inside we've got a stack of floppy disks. So it's got just one 3.5-inch disc, which I think was in case you were having to boot off multiple drives and add one of one and one of the other. If for whatever reason you were playing this off disk and not installing it. And we have, anyone who's old enough will know what these are, but in case you don't, these are the original sort of floppy disks that are actually floppy. These are high density ones that hold 1.2 megs, and there are a total of 9 of them to store the game. And I think this game was also available on 3.5-inch discs, but that's not the one I was able to get hold of, so I've got it on these genuinely floppy discs. Only downside is I currently don't have a drive hooked up that can read them, but I'm working on it, and eventually I'll be able to install the game off these and have some fun. We'll look at the rest of the box. We've got a fairly substantial manual. This is fairly bulky feeling item, and it's got a nice gold leaf. So unlike King's Quest VI, this doesn't have a separate generic Sierra game manual. This has it all in this one. And it's full color, but something about this just makes me think the design of this just looks really cheap, like they've done it in, I want to say Microsoft Word, but I don't know if that was a thing in the 90s. I guess it was the 90s and maybe they didn't have much graphic design abilities, but this does look like a really cheap, poorly designed manual on the inside. At least it's printed in color, so I guess that's cool. And other than that, we've got these 2 bits of paper. One is an addendum about how to install it to the hard drive, because I guess they forgot to put that in the manual, or forgot people had hard drives? I'm not sure. And the other is an all-important flyer, in case this version requires too much performance from your PC. So they did a 256 color VGA version and a separate 16 color EGA version that would work on older machines. And if you'd bought the wrong one, you could fill out this form and send away to get the game sent to you in the lesser version. And yeah, it's just interesting historically. It's also interesting, you rarely see anything like this these days. I guess the closest is if the game has separate executables for different DirectX versions, or maybe simultaneously releasing on the previous and the next generation of consoles, but it's kind of weird to have a different, like an actual different item and a different bit of separate package for old computers and newer computers. And anyway, that's King's Quest V. And I'm going to make you look at this hilarious box art just again. And I'm going to burn that kid's face into your soul. So anyway, I've been Mickey P, and thanks for watching.